Okay, in this training, we're going to be going through how to leverage meta ads to amplify your ecosystem. So how you actually get the most out of ads. Before we get into the actual ad accounts, and I'll show you how to set those campaigns up, and just starting off with some simple basic campaigns that anyone can really get going. The first thing to remember is that ads owe you nothing. You're not buying leads from Facebook, you're not buying leads from Meta. You're simply paying for the privilege to have your message amplified to a wider audience. You're paying for the ability to guarantee the distribution. The result of that distribution is 100% reliant on your business, not Meta. So Meta owes you absolutely nothing. You're not buying leads. It's not like Google where you're paying for cost per click either. It's more similar to, say, TV, where you're simply just paying for the additional exposure. You're paying to get in front of people. The results of how that turns around for your business is, again, 100% your business's responsibility to make good ads, good offers with good messages, and have a good conversion mechanism off the back. So again, skipped ahead of myself, but how you leverage that exposure is reliant on the three levers that we covered in a previous training: the offer, the message, and the mechanism. That's 100% where your focus should be, because especially today, maybe back in the heydays of Meta when you could day trade the account and use force of will to get better performance out of the account, the algorithm and the machine learning aspect of Meta is so well dialed in these days that even if you could squeeze a little bit of extra performance out of the account by maybe budget pacing on a day-to-day basis or adjusting the interest audiences and so on and so forth, the real thing that's going to move the needle are those three levers, where you might get maximum a 1% bump if you maybe get lucky and you change an audience, for example, and it just lands in a relatively decent pocket. Whereas if you focus on the message, offer, and mechanism, you could get 100, 200, 300% increase in performance because those levers move the needle for the entire campaign and for the business. So rather than waste time focusing on little 0.2%, 0.5%, 1% little needle movers here and there, spend all your time focusing on the high leverage activities that can dramatically shift your results. Even though, as I said, the three levers are the core things you want to focus on, doesn't mean we can't be strategic with how we leverage ads within our ecosystem. So a reminder, ads serve four primary functions. The first being, well, it's not really in any particular order, but you can capture in-market demand, so people who are already seeking solutions like what you offer. You can capture created demand, so capture demand from people that have already known about your brand, they've built some trust with you, and they're waiting to see an offer. You can use it to support the creation of that demand, so you can get into wider audiences and bring more people into your world. Under my head, it says supporting demand conversion. So that's where we support the conversion of the demand. We support the sales process through using things like digital air cover campaigns, where we're essentially retargeting prospects that are in pipeline with value-based videos, with value-based content, whether that's testimonials, information, education, so on and so forth. That way, when someone comes into our world, we're hitting them from all sorts of angles. They're seeing us in their feed consistently day after day, so that by the time they're actually in a sales conversation or they're presented with an offer, depending on what sort of mechanism you have in place, they've had so many touch points with you in your business that the likelihood of them converting will dramatically skyrocket. So there are our four functions that we focus on. How that translates into the demand creation, we've got demand creation at the top, so getting into the wider audiences, making people more aware of who we are, what we do, how we help, and what problems we solve. Demand capture, so the in-market and the created demand, all rolling into a hero offer. And then the demand conversion, so our conversion and expansion process, how we're converting prospects into paying clients, and then also expansion as well, something I haven't touched on before in one of these trainings. But the expansion process, you can leverage ads to help upsell prospects as well, make them aware of more offers. For example, Microsoft and Sony that have the Xbox and PlayStation, their hero offer is the Xbox or PlayStation, which they don't actually make a profit on. They tend to lose money on the promotion of those consoles and make it all up on the game sales. So they can build a list of people that have bought PlayStations or Xboxes, retarget that list with game promotions for whatever's coming out, so on and so forth, to help expand those accounts and increase the LTV of those prospects. So you can do the same no matter what business you have. If you have a hero offer running, you can use an expansion-based campaign to help promote and upsell prospects into various other offers as well. So there's multiple ways that we can leverage meta ads in our businesses, but today we're going to be focusing on two and going through the campaign setups. The first one being how to capture the in-market demand, so going straight for prospects already in market. And the second one is supporting the creation of demands so that we can start to build our audience and build our own ecosystem as well. That's typically where I'll start with most businesses, especially if they haven't ran ads before. And depending on the size of the business, if they already have a decent brand and they've built a fairly strong organic presence, we'll then go after that market initially to capture created demand. But if they don't have as much of an organic presence, or even if they do, sometimes we'll still leverage this approach depending on what sort of offer it is. But for most businesses, this is typically where I'll start, and I call this a Blitz campaign. The reason I call it a Blitz campaign is because it's super easy to set up, super quick to set up, and you can get it rock and rolling within a few days. So when you map this campaign out against the stages of awareness, these will be people that are in that sort of problem aware to solution aware bucket. They already know about the problem, they might be open to looking for solutions, or they're already aware of other solutions in the market. We're just trying to present a different angle, take a different approach to some of those other solutions so that they ideally choose us as opposed to them. Now, even though this is the easiest place to start, it's not always necessarily the most scalable campaign because it is the most competitive. We're going after those people that are in market. So if we reflect back to the buyer's pyramid principle, we're going after that top 3 to 10%. That's where a lot of brands will focus on, and it's only the top 3 to 10% of the market, so the least scalable portion of the market. But it gets us wins on the board, it gets us rocking and rolling, and then we can build campaigns to go wider, which the second campaign I'll show you will help do as well. Plus there's other strategies that you can do for that. So let's jump into the ad account and I'll show you how to set up a Blitz campaign. All right, so let's set up a Blitz campaign. So I'm not going to show you how to get into Ads Manager or anything. You can Google that, it's pretty straightforward. It's down the side of your Facebook account. But what I would recommend, so this, as you can see, has got my profile picture there. I would recommend setting up so you've got all these different business managers there. I'd recommend setting up a business manager as opposed to your personal profile, just because if you run ads off your personal profile as the business manager and your ad account gets shut down, you can run the risk of your personal profile getting shut down as well. So we obviously want to avoid that. So set up a business manager, which is very straightforward to do. If you click that gear icon, then you just set up a business portfolio through there. But with this training, we're going to set up a Blitz campaign. To just showcase the steps, you've got campaigns, which are the top level. You've got ad sets that sit inside of the campaigns, and then you've got ads that are inside of the ad sets. So there's 3 kind of stages to it. So if you just think about it in blocks, campaign is the umbrella, ad set can sit inside the campaign, and then ads sit inside the ad sets. So I'll walk through how I do things and then explain each stage as we go. So at the campaign level, you'll choose your objective. So for a Blitz campaign, we're really going to be doing lead or sales. For most of you guys that are watching this, I imagine it's going to be leads. So we're going to go leads and continue. We don't really, unless you're an absolute beginner and you're not going to spend much, you can use that. But typically we want to use the manual lead campaign because it gives us more control as to where our ads get distributed and where they go. I would use that mainly on a short-term campaign if the account has significant data built into it. So the first thing we want to do is give our campaign a name. So we want to use a good naming convention as one, if anyone jumps in your account, you want them to know what the campaigns are about, but also so you can track it yourself. Now, with a campaign, we want to have one objective per campaign. We don't want to promote multiple offers. We don't want to promote multiple products through the same campaign. We just have one offer per campaign. I would add an SS at the front just so that our team knows that's us managing that campaign. But let's just say this was a application campaign. So you might have application campaign testing ground. So this is where we're going to test all our ads and put and run this campaign from. Now, I always run at a CBO level because I focus on those 3 core levers. So by turning this on, it gives us the ability to run the budget at the campaign level and let Meta distribute across our different ad sets based on what creatives it thinks are going to do the best job for us. So we set that at whatever you want to set it at. The rest you don't really need to worry about. So then we drop down to the ad set level. Now the ad set level is where we set the settings for the campaign as well as the overall parameters. So for a Blitz campaign, you can either run to Messenger or Instant Form, depending on what your sales approach is. If you're better on phones and you prefer to go outbound with calls and stuff like that, then do Instant Form. If you're not great with that and you're better at sitting on your phone and messaging people, then go with Messenger. Then just make sure you choose the right page there so that you've got your page. It should be the only one if you're the only one running ads out of this account. If it's a short-term campaign, add an end date. If not, just leave it. And then make sure you've got the right country in there. So obviously I'm not in Canada. So we'll have the right country, or if you've got a state, for example, or city, you could put Brisbane, or yeah, you can put whatever you want in there. But for this example, we'll just leave it as Australia. And now is where it gets interesting. So this setting here is a hard and fast setting. So Facebook is not supposed to, it does sometimes, but it's not supposed to go outside of your targeting settings here. You can exclude custom audiences. So you would do this if you, for example, have buyers or opt-ins already. If you have people in pipeline, you might want to exclude booked calls from this particular campaign. If you, anyone that you essentially don't want to see these ads, you just add them in an exclusion audience then, which you create audiences over on this side. You just upload the CSV file, or if it's a native audience, such as page views or messages or lead form submissions, then you can create that based out of the in-platform data. And then we can set a minimum age here, which, yeah, depending on what you're offering, it can go up to 25. Now, this is where it started to get tricky for some people, because for some businesses, Advantage Plus audience works way better, especially if you're not gender specific, so you're not focusing on a male or female gender, and if you're not focused on a particular age group either. But if you are focused on one or the other gender, and there's a certain age bracket you work with, say you're focusing on women over 40 for a fitness offer, then I would turn this off and go back to the original audience settings. What that essentially does is turn those parameters into hard constraints for Meta so that it won't go outside of those age brackets or outside of the gender that you chose. If you leave this on, it basically says to Meta, these are guidelines. So I want to focus on people between 25 to 45, for example, and mainly females or mainly women. But if you see the opportunity to get better ad performance by going for men and going outside of these age brackets, we basically give Meta the permission to do that. So again, if your offer is widely appealing to a big audience and it doesn't matter if they're man, woman, and the age doesn't really matter either, then I would just leave this on and let the creatives do the primary targeting. If you do have hard constraints around that and you only work with people at certain age brackets and certain genders, then switch the original audience settings on. Now, the last bit in the ad set is the placements. You can use Advantage Plus placement, so I would use that in a create demand campaign. But for this, I'll typically go to manual placements and just turn off the audience network and messenger, mainly because if I'm trying to drive leads from this, these two places tend to drive really low quality leads. So I want to keep it in the Facebook and Instagram feeds out of these placement options. And the last thing we need to do is obviously name this. So how I'll name it is I'll go broad. So that's the audience. Then I'll do the format. So let's say we're doing a video. I'll do the concept. So it might be a direct response video. And this is our first batch of direct response videos. And then lastly, the copy batch. So I'll go through quickly just regarding creative testing and how that happens. So we've set up that naming convention, and the reason it's broad is because we haven't specified any audiences. If we used a custom audience, such as a lookalike audience, or maybe it's a CSV file of an audience like our warm list or email list or something like that, then we would name that like email list as an example, or warm list, whatever you want to call it. Or if you wanted to use detailed targeting, which no one really uses anymore, it's a very old technology. Most advertisers will say it's obsolete, but sometimes you can get incremental lift. But me personally, I don't bother testing all these different things because, again, it's a waste of time in comparison to staying focused on the 3 core levers. But if you were to use an interest stack, and let's say you had like personal development, all of this sort of stuff in there, then you would just put like interest stack 1, or however you wanted to call that, audience 1. And yeah, you would set that up. But 99% of the time, I'm just going broad unless there's a specific retargeting campaign or something that I'm putting together. And the reason for that is Meta's algorithm will place our ads in front of people that already have the interest in the certain topics that we have. So if we're running an ad about fitness and it's about you're doing squats in the ad, you're lifting weights, you're in fitness gear, Meta's AI is going to read that in the creative. It's going to read it in the copy as well and realize this is fitness content. Let's show this to people that are interested in fitness. If you put an older woman in the creative, Meta's going to realize older woman, let's put this in front of older women. If you put a man in there, it'll probably show it primarily to men. So even if you leave these open, Meta is going to place those creatives in front of people that are most likely to have a good experience from those creatives and resonate with it. That's why we can trust to leave it to broad. And if we just stay focused on the message, then who we attract to that campaign is going to be the people that Meta aligns to it, which is going to give us way more scale than if we tried to finesse all these different audience settings. So back to this concept around creative testing. So how I'll typically do this is with dynamic or flexible creatives. If you're running into Messenger, some accounts can do flexible creatives. It's a thing that's being rolled out now, so it's being tested. Some accounts can do the flexible creative option with messages, some can't. Once that's fully rolled out across all accounts, that's definitely what I'll be doing, and I'll show you why. Otherwise, if you're running to lead form, you'll have an option here to set up the dynamic creative, and it will pop up in here. So I'll just show you an example. If we change this to instant form, we'll have this dynamic creative section pop up here. And then we'll flick that on. What that essentially means is we can add multiple creatives, so images or videos, to the same ad, and it gives Meta the ability to rotate through them and test them out. Now, how that looks, but if you just give me a sec to pull up the SOP, is this multi-stage process here. So we're going to determine the format or review the copy. So you'd write your copy first, review the copy, ideate that to a certain style, which if you want this style guide, just let me know and I'll shoot it across. Choose 3 initial concepts. So a concept being like direct response, you might have an us versus them angle, and you might have a UGC, so user generated content, or it might be testimonials. You want to choose 3 general concepts initially, and for each concept, they'll have 3 variables for the same creative piece. So just use this as an example. Let's say we're doing a video, it's a UGC video, and we're going to have 3 different variables of that same video. And the variable we're going to choose is the hook. So the first 3 seconds of this video will be different. The rest of the video will be the same. That gives us 3 concepts in the ad. And then we go through the iteration and learning process. As you can see there, one hook will win. We find the hook that wins, or if multiple hooks win, but let's just say in this example, one hook won. We then test that hook against other variables. So we might use the same hook and we might change to a different persona in the next one, and we test that with the winning hook, so on and so forth. And then I won't go into the rest of that there because that's a bit more of an advanced topic, but that's how we come up with the creative concept. So for here, for example, when we have, I'll just use lead forms just to make it easy. But if you are using Messenger, you'll just have to either split it out unless you already have the flexible ads option in your ad account. So if we've got a direct response concept, batch 001, and let's say there's 3 videos and the only difference in the video is the hook. So we're going to have direct response, name, dynamic creative test, so DCT. Just make sure you've got the right account and you've got the right Instagram account. Then you choose the image or video. I know we've got video here, but this account doesn't have any videos in it. So we'll just go image, and then you just multiple click the 3 different images or the 3 different videos that you've chosen, or you upload manually from there. And then once you've uploaded them and loaded them in, they'll appear here. I'll just use these as an example because it's just stock footage. So they'll appear there. So you'll have your 3 different creative variations. Then you'll pop your copy in here. I like to have 2 copies in here. So I'll have a long form copy, and then I'll add an extra short form version of the same message. Now, obviously this isn't a training on how to do copywriting. That's a whole different thing in itself. Then you'll have 2 headlines. So headline 1, headline 2. And now we've got 12 possible combinations across 3 different creatives, 2 body copies, and 2 headlines that Meta can choose from to find the best combination within this direct response 001 concept. So this is our first batch, our 001 batch of creatives. Now you'll set your call to action. Typically you'll go learn more. And then if you're doing a lead form, you'll create the form. I like to put questions in. So as you can see in this example, there's questions there that filter the wrong prospects out and keep the right prospects in. But if you just want to get flow coming through, you might remove all of those questions and then just have the detail capture. If you do that, you do run the risk of getting lower quality. So initially, depending on the brand's budget, if the brand was only spending like $20, $30 a day, I would have no filters. I would just capture leads and get people into the system. If they're spending anywhere between $50 to $100 a day, I'd probably start to put filters in terms of questions. And then once we're at, say, $200, $300, $400 a day, that's when we transition from lead forms to landing pages. But this is, again, a Blitz campaign. It's how we set it up quickly. You don't need to worry about any of this down here because you're probably not going to be setting up any CRM events with this campaign. This is a style of campaign you're using. This is designed to be fully beginner friendly. So that's it. That's how you set up a Blitz campaign. So we've got the campaign level where we set the objective. We set the campaign budget. Then we've got the ad set level where we set the settings and the parameters. So we've got all that plugged in. Switch that back to manual placements, turn that off. Then we've got our 3 creative options, our 2 body copies, and our 2 headlines, and yeah, so on and so forth. And this campaign would be good to go if these creators were real. Now, with the other formats, so let's say as we recommended over here, you have 3 different formats. What you would then do is go quick duplicate, especially if you're just using the 1 copy, which I'd recommend initially to start off with the 1 batch of copy and test the creatives primarily. You might have UGC 001. I change that to UGC as well. Then we just swap these out and we upload and pop the new ones in. So, and then we just do that across our 3 formats, and that gives us our launching pad. And then from there, we can go through the iteration process. We can test new copy. We can test new creatives. We can test iterations of these creatives, so on and so forth, following the same process. So that's it for the Blitz campaign. Let's jump back to the slides and we'll go into the create demand campaign. All right, so now that you've set up a Blitz campaign, we're also going to accompany that with a campaign to create more demand. And this doesn't have to be a high budget campaign. This can be on $2 a day, $3 a day. It can be very moderate. We're just trying to get ourselves and our word out there and get more people into our ecosystem. So as it says here, creating demand essentially means bringing more people into your world that don't have an intention to buy yet. Maybe they just find your content interesting, entertaining, they're learning something, they find it inspirational. Whatever the reason, they come into your world and they just sit in your world. And they're learning, they go to your YouTube, they go to all your different channels, they consume your content steadily over time until the point where their awareness level shifts and they either realize they have a problem or they move up the buyer's pyramid and they want to actively solve a problem that they were aware of. Whatever the reason, we want them in our world as early as possible so that when they are in a position to start looking for solutions, we're the brand they go with. So what this does is help you tap into that wider segment of the market, the base of the pyramid, and typically this content will be either entertainment, educational content, or inspirational content. So let's jump into the ad account quickly and I'll show you how to set one of these campaigns up. All right, so let's quickly set up the create demand campaign. So for this, we're gonna do traffic. And this is going to be on the proviso that you are posting organic content, because if you're obviously not posting content, then really got nothing to leverage. So if you're in the coaching space or the most professional service space, IG is definitely a great place to do business. So we're going to call this an IG growth campaign. And this is going to be a support campaign. That means it's going to be supporting the growth. Instead of our main campaign, it's just a supporting customer to our overall portfolio. So then we're not going to turn Vantage campaign budget on in this. We're going to leave it at the ad set level because we're going to have different creatives that serve different purposes. So we're going to drive to a profile, in this case, Instagram, and then going to set this budget level. And this one, for our first one, we're going to have a G winning post IDs. So we can grab the post IDs from our best performing organic post and put money behind them, essentially. We'll set up the audience controls. I'll just leave this all as generic based on the previous explanations from the Blitz campaign. So set them up as you need. For this one, you can leave the advantage placements on. You don't need to switch to the manual. Then just come in here and we're going to grab your existing post IDs. So if you had a topic that was a squat and you were showing someone how to do a squat and that was a great post, you just come through, you find all your old posts, you find that post, you just type in the copy that you wrote or whatever, grab that post, pop in there, and then it's going to come up with that post. All the copies going to be populated, etc. Call to action is going to be blurred out there. And then we just hit publish. And then we just grab all of our best performing post IDs and continue to normally lay this out with like 4 to 5. And then you might have specific content that you want
people to see. So there might not be your original post IDs, for example. You might have a separate ad set that has a 3-part training series, as an example. And you've got video 1, video 2, video 3, and if they are sequential, you can retarget based on setting up a video view audience through here. So you go to audiences, there's an option to set up the audience based on video views. You just choose the video that you want that to be measured on. Say it was video 1, and you want people that have seen 25% of video 1 to then see video 2. So you make the audience around 25% of video 1, and that audience, you just change that ad set level. You change that to video 2, video 1, video views, so on and so forth. Or you might just have a bundle of testimonials or something, so you might put testimonials. However you want to structure it, whatever message you want to get in front of your audience or get in front of a audience to attract them to your brand, that's what we put through here. Now, for 99% of brands that I do this with, I just use the winning post IDs from their IG accounts because, one, you get that post actually getting more likes, more views on the profile itself, bolsters out your profile. Plus, you can test in the organic for free, and then if it gets good traction, you pop it in here, put money behind it, and then it's just going to go to a wider and wider audience so that you can guarantee the distribution. So that's as simple as this campaign needs to be. You can fancy with it, you can add other things in it, but for a beginner, this is exactly how I'll do it. I'll just grab your best posts and I'll pop them in here. So hopefully that makes sense. And if you have any more questions of that, feel free to let me know.
So the main message I want you to take away from this training is that ads are an amplifier that guarantee distribution. You're not buying leads, you're not buying sales, you're buying distribution. You're buying the amplification of your message. So Meta owes you nothing just because you've paid them some money to push your message to a wider audience. It's our job to focus on the 3 key levers whilst using the 4 core objectives within Meta to align that to our business strategy and our business approach so that we can drive the leads, we can drive the sales. So it's our job to leverage Meta and its powerful system to put our message in front of the perfect audience, and we need to craft that message so that Meta knows that, hey, if I put so-and-so's business message in front of XYZ customer, they're going to have a good experience from that message, because Meta's priority is always the users. The users are their inventory. That's what they sell. If you as a business compromise that inventory and you create a negative user experience on the platform that causes people to react negatively or jump off the platform or do something that's obviously counterintuitive to Facebook, they'll penalize your ad account with higher CPMs, they'll restrict your audience reach, and they won't push you out, and your ads just won't scale. So we need to make sure our objective is aligned with Meta's objective of delivering a good user experience for their users, for their inventory, and then it's our job to make sure we get the results that we want from the platform. So again, if you use Meta to just focus on building great buying experiences, you won't go wrong, because you're not going to be using clickbait. You're not going to use tactics that try and trick people into taking actions that they might not necessarily understand what they're doing. Like a great example of that at the moment, people are using AI to generate testimonials and UGC videos that, in my opinion, is quite unethical, because it's creating a perception of success or success stories that just aren't real, utilizing AI to obviously show those stories and show those testimonials. So that, to me, is an example of unethical marketing. It's not a great buying experience. Maybe you'll get some results from it, but eventually the business will get found out for doing so. So again, stay focused on building great buying experiences. And if you want the slides to this and any SOPs around running those sort of campaigns that we went through, just shoot me a message on Instagram. If you haven't added me or followed me on there, just jump on and there's the handle there. And just message me ads so I know where you're coming from and what you want, and I'll get the stuff across to you. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up there as well. I can't guarantee a response because I get a lot of messages that come in, but if I get a chance, I will shoot a response through. Other than that, hopefully you found this training valuable and took away some strategies that you can start leveraging to amplify your business.